chemistry of printing here, so I'll pass it around to you.
Great, thanks. Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Great.
Good? By the way, if you need translation, channel 1, I understand, will be translation. I'm just preparing here as a little experiment for us to play with. As you can see, I'm wearing a lab coat. My name is Tom Brown, by the way. I've worked for HP for all my life, believe it or not, since I was a little kid. 19 years ago is when I started. And I started in the lab, helping develop glossy photo papers, believe it or not. So back when, before you actually were able to print what would be considered a photo quality image, this is what I was helping develop as actual paper, and then interaction with ink and the paper to create what we call now a photograph. This was printed with an inkjet printer. Along the way, there's been a lot of fun. And so, yeah, obviously I'm wearing a lab coat here. We're going to geek out a little bit around the chemistry that goes into making supplies, so the ink supplies and even the toner supplies. And it's quite fascinating, actually. You're probably thinking, well, he's a geek, he's in a lab coat. That's true, I'm a geek. Ask me what my favorite Star Wars is, all that kind of stuff. We can talk later about Star Wars if you want. But you know, honestly, the chemistry is really fun. So we have some liquids here we're going to mix together. And do you guys remember back in your chemistry classes?
Chemistry teacher.
You're a chemistry teacher?
Yeah.
Oh, you might enjoy this experiment then. Tell me if you've ever seen this before. So here I've mixed 2 liquids together. And if we all like concentrate really hard and maybe think about my favorite subject, ink, we might be able to change this liquid into something that would resemble what we call ink. Is everyone thinking hard enough? Do you know what this is? Have you seen this?
I've seen similar.
Iodine clock reaction is what it's called. This is not ink, but you can see chemistry is a cool thing, right? Science is fun. And we at HP spend a lot of time having fun creating the ink formulations, right, for our systems. Believe it or not, every ink system that we've developed, and by the way, we have over 100 different ink systems that we've come out with in the past 20 years. Every single one of those took about 3 to 5 years to develop, and about 1,000 prototypes. It's because it's not easy, right? It's not as easy as what I just did here. I wish it were that easy. Actually, I don't wish it were that easy because then I wouldn't have a job. So it takes a lot of effort to make it right. And that's because there's a lot of things going on. You know, there's about 10 different ingredients inside a single ink formulation. So it's more than just water, and it's more than just the pigments. There's all kinds of other things that are going to really ensure that the inks have good reliability with the print head. You know, we actually expose ink to 300 degrees Celsius to give that droplet, microscopic drop of ink energy to escape or eject the print head. So we're actually heating it to extremes, and it creates this little tiny micro explosion that then goes to the page. And when you look at, say, just a simple photo like this of my daughter, there's about 35 million drops of ink on here. 35 million, right? And by the way, this took about 20 seconds to print, not 20 days. So we're delivering about 35 million drops of ink in 20 seconds. And this, by the way, is just one of our home printers. It's not even the new page-wide technology, which delivers almost 1 billion drops per second. Yeah, like Dr. Evil, right? 1 billion. So quite amazing stuff. Now, our discussion today is going to be focused more around page-wide technology because that's the new exciting technology that we're releasing today, right, for the spring. So we're going to focus mainly on the supplies for that. And the main takeaway from this is that these supplies for the new page-wide technology, this new formulation of ink that's in here actually enables a lot of the new performance updates that you've seen around page-wide. So the new speeds that we're reaching, the new page yields that we're reaching, and the new print quality we're reaching are all because of the new supplies, believe it or not. And if you swap out the supply and put in a non-HP, right, a third party, it's not going to behave exactly the same. And really, this is what it's about. So, I don't know how much you've seen yet because it's still quite early in the day, but if you haven't seen it yet, you will see more about the actual printers themselves. All the things that you're going to see with a printer, such as greater page yields per cartridge, and faster speeds, and higher quality output, all those are because of the new ink. Simple as that. Now, let's take a step back, and let's talk about ink technology. There's two basic ink technologies. One is pigment technology, the other one is dye technology. So I'm sure everybody's heard, oh, this is pigment, this is dye. What really are the differences between the two? It's as simple as this. Pigments are really big. Now, it's still microscopic, right? But on a relative scale compared to dyes, pigments are huge, and dyes are really small. And in fact, I know it's almost impossible to see, but here would be one pigment molecule, and that little magenta dot in there, that's one dye molecule. So you can see the size difference. And because of that size difference, we have different attributes between the two. So pigments, because they're big and large, they're strong. And in fact, pigments, believe it or not, are essentially rocks. So an easy way to think about pigments is a microscopic rock that we put into a solution, and that would be a pigment ink formulation. Now we have a whole bunch of other things that go into this formulation too, besides just water and rocks, but that's the basic concept of how we create that. Now, we also have the other technology, which is dye ink. Now, dye inks are used in different printers than our office printers. And here's a little cheat sheet for you to help understand. And that's because not one solution is the best solution for everybody. So we have all these different technologies to really dial in the optimized experience for each user type. So for example, in the home, we use both a combination of pigment ink for the black and dye ink for all the color. And that's because dye inks are really good and vibrant for making photographs. So the photo that I showed you of my daughter, this was made with our home printer, and it's using dye-based inks because dyes work really well with glossy photographs. This is the way the design will work better with glossy. Pigments, on the other hand, they work really well on plain papers. And so that's why in the office, so if you look at our Office Jet Pro and our Page Wide, they're all pigment-based. The black is pigment and the color is pigment. And that's because pigments are strong and durable on every paper type. And in the office, especially, we have only plain paper, right? That's what most people print on in the office. So because they're like rocks, we can spill water all over our print here. And I'm sure you guys have seen this before with pigmented inks. But just like rocks in that water, those rocks are not going to dissolve or deteriorate anytime soon. It takes thousands of years before rocks to deteriorate when next to water. Same thing with this. So now our prints are durable, strong, waterproof, archival, right? If we did that with dye-based inks on plain paper, it looks like this. And this is one of the reasons why in the office then we're all pigmented inks. Different types of paper, different types of output. Even highlight resistant, right? So everybody knows we can actually highlight anything on our pigmented inks and it won't smear or smudge. So that's why we have different technologies. And by the way, there's a third technology, which is laser, and that uses completely different, what's called toner. And toner is not a liquid or ink whatsoever, it's actually a powder. And so here's some HP toner that I brought with me. It's actually a powder. And what's fun about the powder is that if we start playing with it, shake it up, it actually gets excited, and it starts to act like a liquid. You can see it almost flows now like a liquid, doesn't it? Pretty cool, right? But it's actually a solid with a powder. All right, so we're focusing on the page-wide technologies. So page-wide pigments, there's been a lot of improvements. So when we're making an ink formulation, we take our pigments, right? Of course, we need a vehicle. In this case, all of our inks are water-based, so environmentally friendly. And of course, we would add all kinds of other ingredients to really help ensure reliability, quality, all that kind of stuff. So there's things like chelation agents we add, humectants, surfactants, cogation agents, all these really cool things that help improve the overall quality of our system. Now, this would be a normal pigment system. How do we take this really good pigment system and make it better? Any ideas?
I'll give you a call.
Good answer. How do we make it better? Well, here's one idea. What if we were to put more pigments in there than exist already? That's what we did.
You can figure it out.
We took our existing pigment formulation, and with page-wide, what we did, we call it increasing the pigment load. And essentially what that means is in the same volume of liquid, we added a couple scoops more of pigments. And so now you can see we have a thicker or more dense version of our ink than previously before. We also then added some other additional special agents, right, to really help with improvements of reliability and some other things. And voila, here then is our new pigment technology. Now, the brilliant thing about adding more pigments to the ink, it means now we can get some benefits of putting less ink on the page, but still getting the same desired quality output, right? And so that's really the improvements that led to this. So because we're putting less ink on the page than previously, we can actually now make the printer go faster. Because we're not letting, we don't have to worry about the ink drying as slowly. So if we put less paint on the wall, it dries faster, which means then we can touch the wall sooner. So because of that one improvement, we were actually able to get a 20% speed increase from the previous generation of OfficeJet Pro X printers. Right? So all of our new page-wide printers are now up to 75 pages per minute. 75 pages per minute, that's pretty fast. It's faster than any LaserJet in that price range, right? Any laser printer in that price range. Furthermore, when you put less ink on the page, typically you would get a less dense or less vibrant output, right? Because you're putting less. However, because our inks are more dense, we can achieve the same amount of output quality or density with less ink on the page. In fact, because it's more dense, we're able to improve or actually increase the vibrancy slightly over the previous generation, especially in the reds and the blacks. And if we're putting less ink on the page, that means now we can get more pages out of every cartridge. So these cartridges here, even though they're the same size as the previous generation OfficeJet Pro X, we can actually get now up to 20,000 pages per cartridge. And so quite a bit of improvement because of that one, multiple changes or improvements of the new formulation.
And how many more pages is that from the previous generation? Doubling?
It went from 9,600 pages up to 10,000 pages. And then we also have a new category of supply called the YC, or just the Y, and that delivers up to 20,000 pages now of black. And we've also made some other improvements too, because this is a new revision of page-wide technology, or new technology page-wide, utilizing page-wide technology, new revision of. We were able to improve our nozzle reliability, so the print head itself. So here's the print head, by the way, from the new page-wide technology printer. And the print head is actually this long chain here, right? And so the improvement is the page, right? So obviously it's like that, done turn. There's no moving or scanning back and forth. But we're able to improve the reliability because in the end, ultimately, this is a very expensive print head that's permanent within the printer and it needs to last the lifetime of the printer, right? So we're able to improve because of the new formulation of reliability of this.
And what was the reason for the zigzag sort of pattern?
The overlap.
Yeah.
That's to help with, it's called a redundancy, and it's to really help with edge effects of the print head. So an easy way to think about it is like a faucet. If you turn on a faucet, you'll actually notice, if you look at it closely, the outer edges of the faucet flow at a different rate than the middle of the faucet. Same thing here. Think of this as like plumbing, right? So the edges actually have a different rate than the middle, and so that helps cover those effects. So we've had all kinds of great improvements. How about this, paper curl? If we put less wet or less ink on the page, the paper curls less. You saw when I spilled water on this, it curled, right? Because this is wood. Paper is made from wood pulp. And wood, if it gets wet on one side and dry on the other, it actually will curl. We're putting ink, which is wet, on paper. Paper curls when we print on it. If we put less wet on the page, it curls less. So we're actually able to improve paper curl, believe it or not, with the new ink formulation. All these great advantages because of the new supplies. Now, it's hard to see on those screens here, but I made some real prints here. And if you look in the reds and the blacks especially, you can see a density improvement from the old generation to the new. So it has less ink on it with more density, and all the other benefits I just mentioned. And you can even see paper curl. One of these is the old generation, the other one's the new generation. See, there's a curl on one side. Anyways, very proud achievements here within the system and the family. Improvements also on black, which you can see on the screen. The new density on the left, the old generation on the right. Now, designing inks for page-wide is a really stressful thing for the ink themselves. Right, we're putting a lot more development into the ink formulation because we're asking the ink to do things faster than they've ever moved before. We're wanting them to dry faster than they've ever moved before. We're asking them to print more pages than they've ever done before. It puts a lot of stress on the system itself.
And they have a lot more heads to clean than ever before too.
Yeah, that's right. We need to make sure everything's maintained, right? Now, sometimes these things fight against each other. So if we're trying to move liquid faster through the print head, right? It's plumbing at the end of the day. If we're trying to move liquid faster, if we make a thicker ink, thicker liquids move slower, right? They have different viscosities. That's going against our speed. So we have to figure out how to make that work. So we had to redesign some of the plumbing inside the print head itself to help compensate for that. We're also trying to do something that's called single pass printing. So with our traditional cartridges, like this here, this is for our home printer, right? How it prints is it scans back and forth, right? And the page wide doesn't need to scan. Well, when we're scanning back and forth, we have the benefit of doing multiple layers of ink on top of each other to get the desired density of output. It's just like painting walls, right? Oftentimes, if you're painting a wall, you need 2 coats of paint, maybe even 3 coats of paint to get the desired quality and density out of that, right? We have to paint this wall in 1 layer of paint and make sure it's the correct density, and also we don't want any runs or any other things when you start coating on a lot of paint. We also do something called wet on wet interaction. So remember, we're firing almost 1 billion drops per second at this print head. That means we have a wet drop of ink on top of a wet drop of ink, right? If we have 35 million drops of ink here, there's drops on top of drops, and they don't get a chance to fully dry before the next drop touches it. Now what happens when you're in a car and it's raining and you have drops hitting your windshield and those drops touch each other? What happens?
The splotch gets bigger.
It grows into a larger drop and it moves. That is absolutely horrible for printing because there's no sharpness, there's no accuracy, there's no precision in your printing anymore, right? So we have to design our inks to go wet on wet and not interact and not mix. And actually, if you guys want to come up and look at this, we can do an experiment. So what I have here, don't be shy, come on. In fact, I'll need someone to help me. Do you want to help me?
Okay.
All right, cool. Why don't you come around here? All right, what we have are two ink systems. One's an HP ink system. The other one is a third-party ink system. Now you can see the yellows are different between the two. And you can also see the blacks react differently to the bottom. This black here you can see falls down to the side where this black sticks to the sides, right? So we're going to print each one. Do you want to be the HP system or the third-party system?
HP system.
You want to be the HP. I like that. Here's your HP system. Now I want you to copy what I did. Start with the yellow. And take the yellow pipette there. And we're going to amplify printing wet on wet. So in your dish, make a nice puddle of yellow, about like that. Put the rest back for future testing. Maybe suck up the liquid, so stick it right down, all the way down the bottom. Suck up some. There you go, good. That's good. Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll work just fine.
Okay.
All right, put the rest back in for future experiments. Squeeze it. All right, cool. And then put the lid on for safety so we don't spill. All right, now I want you to take the black with the black pipette and put one drop of black. Try to stay away from the bubbles though. Try to hit the actual liquid. And this is the HP system where we know we have drops on top of drops. What do you think will happen with the HP system? Is it going to mix or not mix? You'll see as soon as it hit, it's stuck. It doesn't want to move around, does it? And we could shake it up, we could do all kinds of things, and you'll see that it won't actually interact. Now, what do you think will happen with the I try to save money system?
It'll move.
Let's watch. At first, you're like, hey, Tom, check it out. I saved some money. I go, yeah? What happens now? I mean, it looks cool, but it makes for a horrible quality output print. So that means every time, every drop, sitting on top of every drop, actually now moves and migrates and creates with this a fuzzy or non-sharp image. And with the HP, of course, it stays sharp, nice solid lines, and it doesn't interact. This is just one difference.
Together?
Yeah, sure. This is just one difference between an original and a third party.
Oh.
So we have to do a lot of this design with our chemistry to account for wet-on-wet interaction or any other ways that the systems are designed. One other thing that we've developed for our page-wide technology actually prevents something that people think happens with inkjet printers when you don't use them. What happens to an inkjet printer when you don't use it?
Clogs up, gets dry, you got to run the cleaning cycle a billion times, and then it's still not got lines in it, and you just buy a new printer.
Right, that's a horrible experience, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's right.
So we've actually been working to fix that experience. So believe it or not, and you should believe it because I have a lab coat on, and I have data to back it up, don't worry. All HP Office printers can sit idle, not used, unplugged even, for up to 6 months and still come back online after that. And here's how we did it. I know it's hard to see again on the screen, but if you can make it out, this is our new page-wide and Office ink. On the top layer, you'll see there's a thin film. Think of it as like pond scum, almost. It's only on the very, very top layer, and what it does is that essentially when the ink sits or doesn't move, that very top layer coagulates or creates a scab.
A seal.
And it seals itself off from the environment. If you look at the one on the left, it's nice, shiny, and glossy. This is the older generation ink. This is the newer generation ink, believe it or not. And so now what that means is when we have our very expensive print head, it's permanent within the printer, there's ink remnants that are on that print head, right? When it gets done printing. Within a few seconds, this thin film actually then starts to protect this very expensive print head and seals it off from the environment. And then a few more minutes later, there's another protection, a dual protection. It's a physical cap that actually comes and then seals it off. It's just like when you get done writing with this, you put the cap back on the pen. So we have a physical and a chemical protection that prevents drying. And that really then led to this 6 months of non-printing, up to 6 months. And by the way, for our home printers, up to 3 months. So slightly different ink, of course, formulation on our home printers, but the output is still the same design to not dry out. Pretty proud of that. Okay, so that's all the new improvements on the page-wide technology. Well, we've also done some similar things.
Actually, before you go on,
Yeah.
so when you turn the printer back on,
Yep.
does that seal somehow dissolve itself so it goes back to a liquid? I mean, how does, if it's sealed, normally you'd imagine it's gunky and stop, but clearly that's not the case.
Clearly, right, and
Yeah.
very, very logical question. So what happens is, it's only that very top layer, right? And the droplet behind it actually pushes it out of the way.
And that's during like a clean cycle so it doesn't hit the page.
Yeah, as soon as you fire it up, it pushes it out and you're good to go.
And how difficult was that to develop? Must have been insanely hard.
3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good question too on that. So hopefully it will lead to then not having this perception that ink dries out like it used to in the past. This isn't your grandfather's printer, right? This is a new printer. So a lot of those improvements that you saw on the page-wide side, we also implemented in our OfficeJet Pro printers. So we have some new OfficeJet Pro printers, and again, the new formulation of our inks brought together higher page yields, better output, faster speeds, all these kinds of things. Not going to go into it, but we did it the same basic way. We added more pigments into the solution, which then allowed us to do other things. Same is also true for our LaserJet printers. So we have new LaserJet printers that were recently announced with a new toner formulation, and these new toner formulation actually allowed all the printer improvements, or most of them, that you've seen. So faster first page out, more energy efficient, smaller print size, all these things are because of the new supplies. And ultimately this means, of course, then what? If you were to change out those supplies, right, if you didn't have the original supply in there, you're not going to get all those improvements that you bought this new awesome printer for. Right? You're kind of like putting bicycle tires on a car. It's almost taking away why you bought that. And the bottom line, of course, is that not all supplies are created equal. And I don't care if it's for the home, or for the office, or for the page-wide technology, or for laser. One of these is the original, the other one is a third party. I don't need to point out which is which, do I? And this is when it works properly. We've all seen failures and other things with cheaper supplies. And in fact, for the Asia market, the Asia Pacific market, here is the latest study comparing original HP supplies to third-party supplies. And if you look at page yields and reliability, on average, and this is looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cartridges to really get an average performance, you'll find that HP delivers twice as many pages per cartridge on average than the refill. So yeah, the refill costs less, but it doesn't give you the same amount, so does it really give you a better value? Probably not. And then reliability, right? So we've seen failure rates as high as 60% for these non-HP cartridges sometimes. Again, not every time, but it's like going to Macau and you gamble, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? Now, in closing, looking at across our wide printer portfolio, we have different types of technologies and different types of designs because everyone is targeted for a better experience for each type of user. So if you look across our portfolio, we have home printers, we have office printers, and then even within our office segment, we have different levels and qualities and usage scenarios. And this is why we have so many things. So if you look in our home printing, we only print like once a week or so in the home, right? It's occasional printing in the home. So all the printers, ink formulations, and experience is targeted around that occasional print scenario. But if you move into the office, you're printing daily, you're printing on plain papers, you're doing other things than what the home does. And this is why we have then those separate designations. And within the office, of course, we have OfficeJet Pro, right? This is for your small business up to 5 people. have page wide up to 15 people who are looking at energy costs and some other benefits. And then of course we have our laser printers to go into the up to 25 or more people even. And that's really targeted for that style of printing. Okay. So that's it for my discussion. Time is up, it sounds like. I could talk for 4 hours on this if you guys want to. Follow me on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, print with Tom at HP is the handle. And if you have any questions, we can always catch up. Okay?
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next showcase. So thank you, Tom.